Well, let me ask you this question, Colonel Gallimore. You're currently the commander of the 57th Operation Group. I think or you're in Nevada. So tell us how many people are in the 57th Operations Group? Like how many people are you in charge of total?
Yeah, Brian. So, yes, I'm the commander of the 57th Operations Group. I've got 10 squadrons and then 3 detachments that are spread out between Nellis, Fort Polk, Louisiana, Fort Irwin, California, Camp Bullis, just outside of San Antonio, down at Davis-Monthan in Tucson, Arizona, and then finally in Oklahoma City. So I've got about 900 personnel. I've got 32 F-16s. I've got a team of cyber aggressors, the only ones in the United States Air Force. Yeah.
What's a cyber aggressor?
A cyber aggressor. So think about all of the things that you see in the news about what North Korea or China or Russia is doing to attack cyber networks and cyber systems. And so I have a team that emulates that on the Blue Forces. So
well, I've been very, very, not to interrupt you, Colonel, but as a computer science guy for a very long time, somebody interested in technology, I have been extremely concerned about the cyber warfare. For instance, I don't know if you saw, but I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a Twitter hack, and some very prominent people had their accounts hacked. And I just was sitting there wondering, man, what if somebody hacked some prominent politician's account and they tweeted something out that wasn't true, but man, that could have real world ramifications. So that is certainly something, this cyber war is certainly something, back when I was a computer science, nobody cared about it because all it did was, destroy your hard drive. But nowadays, stuff that's going on online can have real world consequences. And so that's really interesting to hear. Do you guys have any, or do y'all have any drones or anything like that? Like, where do you think the drones kind of fit in with, or is that not part of the Air Force?
Well, so yeah. Now, are you talking about like the large scale drones,
Like the Reaper drones and stuff like that, the combat drones?
They're absolutely part of the Air Force, and they are an integral part in. We do not. I personally do not have any in the 57th Operations Group, but Creech Air Force Base, which is just up the road from Nellis, is really the unmanned aerial vehicle mecca, if you will. That's really where they started, and they're based all over now. But yeah, they are intricately involved in any type of combat plan and combat operation, and they provide a very unique skill set that manned aircraft or piloted aircraft physically sitting in the cockpit can't necessarily do, especially for the lengths of time and the sensors and things that they can put on those drone aircraft. It's an impressive enterprise that the Air Force, out of necessity, has developed in order to preserve the fighter fleet, for lack of a better term.
So I actually got to sit in a drone simulator a couple weeks ago, and oh my gosh, that was so cool. They were showing me how detailed you could get with some of the camera technology. I mean, you can literally see if somebody has a mustache or not, and it's just, the technology is amazing. But Colonel, I didn't think we were going to talk about this, but if you don't mind, I'm curious to ask you this question. Where do you think the interplay between UAVs or unmanned aircraft and manned aircraft is headed? I mean, are we going to a point eventually where we won't have any manned aircraft, or is there always going to be a need for manned aircraft? Or what do you see kind of, what is the future of air power for the United States?
Well, I mean, you may have seen, Brian, DARPA has been doing some testing on AI, and they actually built an AI simulator that fought an F-16 pilot a couple weeks ago now.
Really? I did not see that.
Yeah, I mean, the AI simulator won hands down every time. So I do believe that at some point technology will allow where you no longer have to have a pilot physically sitting in the aircraft.
Yeah.
I think we're still a ways out from that, but I absolutely think it's feasible that maybe towards the end of our lifetime, but definitely in our children's lifetimes, that you could potentially see an initial wave of combat aircraft that are all remotely piloted, then followed by, piloted aircraft where pilots are physically sitting in the cockpits. than going in. I think that is absolutely. And then, the other thing that you alluded to is the interoperability between the systems is absolutely the way forward, right? Because the more connected you can be in the battle space, then the more situational awareness you have with which to continue to prosecute the enemy.
I am so interested in AI and stuff like this. Matter of fact, I drive a Tesla. The reason I drive a Tesla is because I'm really into the technology behind it. And I can tell you, I'm such a nerd that I watched the 3-hour technical presentation on their self-driving hardware and software. I mean, they built all their own chips and everything. And, the advantage that Tesla has right now is they got 1 million plus cars and they're all talking to each other and they're using deep learning is what they call it. But, one of the things that I've noticed, because I use autopilot in the Tesla when I can, is it's going to be a while. It's not there yet. There's too much. I don't know when we're going to get there. I think eventually we're going to get there, but it's not that smart right now. I'll put it that way. But I am really interested in it because there are now AIs that read radiograms better than a radiologist. They read MRIs better than a radiologist. We all know that there are AIs that human beings will never beat a computer in chess ever for the rest of history. And now they're beating humans in games like Go where they don't even give them the rules ahead of time. They're learning the rules. And so this is a really, really fascinating topic. And the other thing another thing we've got to think about is AI safety. And, if we deploy a bunch of AI drones, we got to be dang sure that we're extremely clear about what their mission is so they don't start doing things that we don't anticipate, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the moral dilemma right now, right? For lack of a different way to put
it.
It's an
ethical question. It's not really a technical question. It's
it absolutely is.
Yeah.
And so to have a person, a human being in the loop, is where the technology is right now. But I do believe that we will be able to, through more research and development, produce an AI system that can completely autonomously operate and make decisions, as well as be presented with ethical and moral dilemmas and still make a decision as good and sometimes better than a human, because the machine won't necessarily have all of the bias, right?
Yeah.
That we have as humans. It's just,
these are really, really, really important questions. I talked to Representative Will Hurd, about some of this stuff, 5G technology and AI. He's a computer science guy as well. But I love the way you put that. These are, they're technical questions, of course, but really at the end of the day, they're ethical questions or moral questions. So for instance, with a self-driving car, what are you going to tell the car to do when it's driving down the road and a 4-year-old girl runs out to pick up her soccer ball, but there's 4 kids on the side of the street. So you got a choice to either turn and hit those or go straight. And there's no good choices. And the point of it is we have to think about these things because the machine is going to do what we tell it to do. And so if we build in some ethical restrictions and some moral restrictions, that'll be good. But there's going to be instances where we just can't foresee things. And so how do you build judgment into a smart machine?